Hello everybody and welcome back to You Can't Win. This is Tom here and I'm joined by Don as usual. Today we have for you a Q&A episode. We have been piling up the questions in the mailbag and we're going to try and get through as many of these as we can. But I guess'1st we wanted to talk about the Hagia Sophia, or was that a question, Donald?
Yeah, we got a question from someone that asked, please do a whole episode on the Hagia Sophia. Lots of meat on that bone. Very eager to hear Tom's opinion. I'm not sure if we're going to do whole opinion, but we'll get the capsule, we'll get the capsule opinion, and then I think that'd be a good way to start us off. So, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't really have very strong opinions about it. I feel like it's a Turkish issue primarily. I mean, obviously other people have a stake in the thing as well, but for me, it doesn't feel like something, just because it's like a mosque Islam thing, I don't feel like I have a real stake in it. I guess I'm like broadly supportive of it. It seems like a fine thing. Like they're not going to be, it's not like they took over a church and are like converting it into a mosque, which I would not be in favor of. But it's been a museum. I think it's important to understand the history behind it, that it was converted to a museum by Ataturk, and all the Christian aspects of it from prior to becoming a mosque are still there. Like there's icons there and stuff like that, and I believe the plan is to keep those in place, which I think is great. That was like one concern I had, but that doesn't seem to be something that they're trying to like get rid of or anything like that. So it seems fine to me. I mean, it's always been a place of worship, right? Whether it was in Christian hands or Muslim hands. So I think that it's great that it's becoming that again and that people can go there. I mean, it's a beautiful place. I've never been there myself, but of course it's like a world landmark. So yeah, I think it's great. I mean, the one like kind of negative or iffy thing about it is that it's part of like Erdogan's political kind of PR stuff, and if you don't buy into that and you just can appreciate it for it just being like another mosque that you can go to that's a nice place to go worship, then I think that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are blowing it out of proportion on the sort of Christian side of turning it into, it's just, it becomes one of those silly cultural things online where it's like somehow a disgrace or something, or like proof of Islamification of the world or something, and all that kind of stuff. So you see that kind of nonsense stuff. And then I think that there's also maybe a current of like the secularist kind of things where people don't like they don't like sort of like the creep of, back of religion. And it's easy for me to say that that's not a big deal. Like if I were, a secular liberal in Turkey right now, I'd probably be, feeling under siege maybe to some extent or something like that anyways, right? It's easy for me to kind of go, oh, let's just, let people do whatever. But I don't know. I like it, if you, from pictures at least, it looks beautiful. So it's like, it'd be nice if, I don't know, it at least got some, more extensive use for people that want to use it for, its kind of intended purpose to some extent. So, yeah.
Right. And it's still available to tourists, so it's not like it's only Muslims are allowed to go there, like it's Mecca or something like that. You can still go check it out and stuff. I don't know if you can take pictures, but yeah, I mean, it'll be free now too, they're not going to charge you admission to go to a mosque. So that's a plus, I suppose. I do think the backlash is pretty, I just don't take it very seriously. It's at least from the whole, like the Christian side of things, because there are, Muslim historical sites in Spain, for example, that there's like security that won't let Muslims pray in them, Yeah. So if we're going to start kind of playing that game, then I think that it doesn't, you don't look great when it comes down to it.
Sure.
I'm not interested in playing that game, but if people are kind of talking about Islamification and all this kind of stuff, I think that's a little bit ridiculous just in light of like the situation. Yeah. I think that the whole history of secularism in the 20th century in Turkey is, it's not a great one, so I think a lot of Turks are kind of symbolically viewing this as like a turn away from that and kind of like moving on from that period and stuff. So I think that that's part of why it's become such a like celebrated thing. And, and of course there's sort of like a little bit of just like there's the silly backlash against it on the behalf of like Western folk and Christians and stuff. I think there's also a little bit of sort of the mirror image on the Muslim side of things for some people, and that's not where I'm coming from with it, at least. So
Yeah.
I think you can kind of be fine with it and who care about it and just move on,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are these stories like this. It seems like a big week for stories like this, I guess, because there was also the AP. Did you see the story the AP did about the Catholic Church? Whatever, amassing.
Oh,
a
there's
fortune.
some money or something going to them from.
Yeah. What happened was they made the government made a rule that churches and like NGOs that are related to churches and stuff can apply for the Paycheck Protection Program just like any other nonprofit could. Normally, they wouldn't be really allowed to under the separation of church and state. That would be kind of like a line kind of thing, and instead they said because it's like the COVID crisis, anyone can apply really. And so, the church itself is like it's not like it's very weird legal situation, right? Where there's like thousands of NGOs across the United States that are maybe like a soup kitchen or like a monastery and all this other stuff. All of them basically applied for it, basically, right? Like the bishops and stuff were like, you have to, if you qualify, you should apply. Now, all the other churches did that too. Like it's not like a conspiracy or anything like that, right? But if it's if you add up all the money, it's like $1 billion or something, right? Because it's like, I think someone said they have 250,000 people that work for Catholic-related organizations in the United States, kind of thing. So, or like a Catholic college or whatever. Anyways, just different things like that. And so the AP ran a story, and the way that it did, they were very clever about how they framed it. They said, using a special loophole, the Catholic Church has amassed $1.5 billion in money intended for COVID relief. And
all right, Papa getting paid.
Yeah. So, but the way that it's kind of framed is it's this idea that it made it look like the church was using the money, like basically stealing the money that was intended for other things and stuff like that kind of thing, right? So it was clever how they kind of did that and make it look like it's like a heist or something like that. And then the related thing was that that was what they led with, right? They did have like sort of a journalistic angle inside that was sort of the core of the story, but was not really the way that they sold it at first. And that was that, some of these organizations were under like some of them, not like, obviously there's so many of them that this is only going to be in certain cases, but were, making payouts for sexual abuse claims and things like that, right? So they suffered losses because of COVID and stuff, but then some of those losses would also be because of claims or something like that. So they tried to make it look like, the journalist kind of thing, tried to make it look like it was the church was using COVID money to pay abuse claims kind of thing or something like that, right? And so anyway, so it caused a bunch of stir, but it was one of those things where I don't know, it's just a funny kind of way of framing it all because it's set up in this way that it's not clickbait because it is, I guess, to some extent, but it's also like, here's some fresh meat kind of thing, like Jezebel had their headline for it was something like haven for pedophiles gets billions in COVID relief or something. So and it's like okay, well, I don't know. I mean, it's fun. I like it though because I always translate it into like other things. And just imagine like the New York Times putting out a headline that's like, I don't know, Jewish organizations amass millions in COVID ripoff or something like that. Like, I don't know. Right. So I don't know. But yeah.
Our buddy Dino Kale made a tweet about it. I'm remembering that now. And he said something like, what's this? They're using the money to build a gold statue of Louis the Ninth or something like that.
Yeah. One of the, yeah. Juniper Dis Cerro, whatever his name is, but fighting or something, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on.
Well, real quick, I just want to say about all that kind of stuff. When people are getting money from the government during times like this, if it's one thing when it's like $1 trillion bailout to the Wall Street kind of thing, and it just disappears in 5 minutes or whatever, and then they just dole out like another $1 trillion.
Sure.
That's one thing. But when it's just like governments handing out money, like just let people get paid. I don't know. Like I really don't care that much. I mean, obviously there are certain things that money should be going to, but we have money. The issue isn't that like the church is getting some and this company's getting some. The issue is like the people who need it aren't getting some. I don't know. Like, and I understand that's where the outrage can come from in certain cases, but it just seems like misdirected sort of like, focus on the goal of getting the people who need it money rather than like, oh, well, he got some, like, relax, just let everyone get paid and make sure your people get paid too.
Sure. Yeah. I think that is part of what also drives people's anger at tax increases kind of and stuff sometimes is that, when they hear liberals being like, oh, no, we need to raise taxes for these programs because we need them and stuff. I think people sometimes hear that kind of thing and go, well, wait a minute. Like, you're saying that because you work for some company that, gets money from the government or something. So you benefit from this, or you're a nurse, so you get money, but maybe I won't or something, like it's kind of, I don't know. It's come on, just everyone gets paid. Dude, stop screwing with us or something. So, yeah. But, so the next thing, someone said that I would pay a modest but reasonable monthly fee in exchange for a podcast about Canadian politics. So I thought I would mention that one because we did get a lot of positive feedback on the RCMP episode, which is good because if I like tweet about something about Canada, no one cares. Like no one cares like at all. So it's good that we did a RCMP episode with Mike, and we got a lot of positive response from that, I think. So that was people seem to enjoy it. Like a lot of Canadians coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
So I was happy about that because it's like, oh, good, we can do a Canadian episode once in a while, and it'll work out. So I don't think we'll do a full podcast on that, but we'll do, we'll have to do check-ins on that or whatever sometime or whatever,
Yeah, don't worry, guys. I'm not going to allow this to become some Canuck thing.
Yeah. So, anyways, but it's nice that I can talk about it and it doesn't, go into the void or whatever. So, yeah. The next question is, where do you guys see yourself in 10 years? What do those years look like?
Oh, man, I don't know. I'm just sort of, I got a good thing going right now, and it won't last forever, so I'm just kind of waiting till it ends pretty much.
Yeah.
And then at that point, I'll just figure out something else to do. I don't know. Sometimes Tabs and I talk about moving abroad,
Yeah.
So maybe that, but I'm not really sure, to be honest. I don't know. I'm just kind of playing it by ear, saving some money right now. And so hopefully that keeps happening and I'll be just sitting on a big pile of gold.
Yeah. Do you talk about specific places or?
Yeah, we kind of get like different ideas at different times. And then it's kind of like for a month, it's like that place is where we're thinking about. And then next month it's another place. Right now it's Turkey.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually like rent is very cheap in Turkey, and I speak Turkish, and I don't know, maybe I could like do my master's or something like I was planning to way back and do that whole thing. And I don't know, that's like a possibility. I think it would be nice, cool.
Yeah. You think you would be able to fit back in a university? Like, would you feel comfortable or?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when I originally did it, I mean, not the very first time right out of high school, but I went to school for like a year and then dropped out and went back a few years later. I was already feeling like, I'm like in that non-traditional, whatever they call it for the old people going back. I was like 22 or something and going back as a sophomore. And so I feel like I've already done that, and I did enjoy it, and I really like dedicated myself to it. I put a lot of effort into it. I took some grad level courses and I enjoyed those the most. So I think I would enjoy doing something like that. The main thing is like, is that worth it in terms of spending my time and money doing that versus like working, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess for myself, I've always found it too hard to. I mean, I have at different times, but I just haven't really been able to keep it together for like a normal sort of full-time job kind of thing. So my kind of hope is that I sort of keep accumulating almost like experience points in, like 5 different little things that I like doing, and getting them up to a point where it's like a snowball kind of thing. I just keep going forward, and those 5 different things, like say writing magazine articles or something like that, and just whatever, and that somehow all of that together is a decent income or something, right? Like, so that I could be doing this or that, and then I would have, like, I might buy an apartment, say in Montreal or something or wherever, and use that as a home base, but then go all over the place kind of thing. I think that'd be fun to do, like to go different places and stuff. I don't know. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah. It's kind of funny that we're both talking about travel when, like, who knows, maybe the whole world will just become like, barren wasteland of pandemic zones.
Yeah. But yeah, so I don't know. I think over the next 10 years, that's what is sort of it's hard though, because it's one of those things where I'm like, am I going to be finally good at the things I want to be good at when I'm like 70 or something, if I just keep chipping away at 1 or 2 of them instead of going all in on something. So, but yeah, I don't know. I just keep doing that, and then yeah, I don't know. I think that's I think that's the best thing for me. I mean, we've talked about this before, but like just putting one foot in front of the other a bit here and there, and just working on things as they come up instead of trying to plan out the whole future in detail or something. So
yeah, I mean, that's what I'm doing too. So I mean, just going how this year has gone, like, who knows what's going to happen in like 10 years. Like, imagine if each year gets worse. Like, what's the point of planning anything right now?
Yeah, although I've been the same kind of thing as you. I paid off all my debts, and I'm starting to save, and so I'm in kind of a good position where I feel like, compared to most people, I feel like more on an upward trajectory than. I saw something like, I think like a third of people couldn't make their July housing payments or something like that. So, I'm not in that position. So, so so I think that I can't complain in that regard. So
that's gonna get rough.
Yeah,
like towards the end of the year, that's gonna be pretty bad.
Yeah. Yep.
That'll be fun to get mad on Twitter about, I guess.
Yeah. So the next question is, I consider liking Muslim Tom's tweets paying my jizya. Is this correct, Tom?
No. So a couple things. No, you owe money, but there is no emirate as of yet. So you actually do not owe jizya just yet. But don't worry, it's coming. And then you will definitely owe actual currency. Likes, while appreciated, don't count.
Oh, so can you pay in kind for jizya? Was that historical? Like, could you say,
yeah, I believe
give
so.
a goat or whatever?
I believe that both zakat and jizya were payable in kind. I mean, I think in most cases around the world, a lot of people would pay taxes of all kinds in kind.
Do people underneath this kind of program, do they have to pay zakat as well, or is that just for Muslims?
Are you talking about historically or our proposed?
Historically.
Zakat is only for Muslims, and jizya is it's like a substitution. Like if you're Muslim, you have certain obligations like military service and stuff like that. And then if you are non-Muslim, you are exempt from military service, etc. And you also you don't pay zakat, you pay jizya.
Okay.
Which is why that's the reasoning behind why jizya is a little bit higher. And it's never been the case that it's like Muslims have to pay like $1 and non-Muslims pay 100 or something. It's never been anything crazy out of whack that I'm aware of. So
okay. Is it chill to go on Birthright Israel?
No, it's not. I mean, if you go there with kind of a something else in mind, I'm not suggesting anything, but if you have like a little plan that you're going to implement while there, and you have something special in your backpack for those people, that's fine. But yeah, don't go and like dance on the beach with like IDF murderers. Like, I don't think that's chill.
Yeah, the thing is, I think this is, there's sort of like unique American reasons why they think that this gets some coverage, but these kind of things exist, or at least existed all over the place in the past, kind of thing. Like we associate it with just Israel, I guess, but I actually live right near a Ukrainian youth camp kind of thing. It's like, I don't know, like a big cultural thing, I guess. And
I saw something about one of those places in the news. I don't know. Did you see this?
No.
All right, sorry, we'll get back to this in a second, but I saw something that was like, it was a Ukrainian Canadian youth camp, like you're describing, and they have like a portrait of some like fascist far right like guy, like black and white picture, like I don't know, from the 30s or something, and they're like all dressed up Hitler Youth style in uniforms and
so
flags.
That might even be it. I don't know. I mean, there's a bunch of them probably in Canada, but that's probably one of them. I don't know. So yeah, they have that's the kind of thing. I mean, like there's all these weird programs like this that exist, and it doesn't necessarily have to be ethnic or religious, whatever. Too. Years ago, I went to one that was like youth leadership or something like that kind of thing, you know, and it was like, to me, it was like a junket kind of thing. Like you go and you get like a free weekend basically or something, or like a cheap weekend in Ottawa or something, right? And then you go with other students and stuff, and it's supposed to be, you know, I don't know, fun and to do that and get, you know, a free trip out of it kind of thing. But, you know, once you get there, you start to put two and two together and you start to realize that it's like a captive audience thing, right? You know, you have to sit through like a military recruiter and stuff, and it's like when they do the timeshare stuff or something, but like for kids or something. But yeah, I don't know. So there's like a whole ecosystem of trying to get kids to believe different things or something like that's out there. And I don't know. I feel like that doesn't get talked about as much. I don't know. I mean, I know it does with Israel because of like, you know, the
anti-Semitism on the left.
yeah. And but also because like, I don't know, there's so much of the youth culture stuff is just strange. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I'm just thinking about it. Like, what if some government offered me a free vacation? Like, Turkey, I don't think is really comparable to Israel in that sense. But like, let's say I wanted to go to Dubai or something, and the UAE offered me like a free vacation or something. I'm thinking I would probably take it. So I can't really come down too hard on someone for doing Birthright just because it's like a free trip to the beach or whatever.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm not going to say that like it's something that is like a decent thing to do. I think it's pretty bad. Although you're probably not hurting anybody or whatever. So like, I don't know. I'm not going to get too worked up about it. Like I know people who have done it and I don't hold it against them or anything like that. But yeah, it's not a good thing, right?
Yeah. So the next question is for you, and it says, not to be all troll Islam, but how do you deal with the whole Aisha thing? Because if I were to go all troll Islam, that seems like it'd be the easiest target. So yeah, I don't think you've answered this one. This seems like every Muslim online gets to ask this at least once, and I think we had to, so it's good to get through it. I don't know, once at least.
I'll be honest, it's not something that has really, I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about it. It's not something that has really bothered me. It's one of those things that it's clearly from a different time and place. So I just feel like I don't have the proper perspective to like judge it really. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that, oh, well, it's totally okay to like date people or like marry someone that's extremely young because it was a different time and that's that. I'm not saying that like that settles it for me, but I just feel like because of the way that we look at these things today, I just think that I can't look at it like in an objective way. But I will say that it does not at all seem like it was some sort of predatory relationship or anything like that. From what I understand, and again, I haven't looked into this super deeply or whatever, that he was betrothed to her when she was extremely young. She was the daughter of Abu Bakr, who was like his best friend. He was the caliph after Muhammad. And, she grew up to become a very prominent person in the community. She was a top hadith scholar. So she taught tons of people the religion. She was in battles and stuff. She was not someone who was like a devastated victim of abuse or something like that. Like you can clearly see that that's not the case, and that she was very fond of him and all that. So the way I look at it is they were both very good to each other. They were both very happy with each other. And she's a great example for Muslims, especially Muslim women. We refer to her as the mother of believers. And I mean, that's it. I just don't, it doesn't establish a precedent that would allow like child marriage or anything like that. Like in the Sharia, that's not considered something that's like part of the Sunnah or something like that. It's considered like he actually had more wives than is permissible to Muslim men. Men can have up to 4 wives, provided that they treat them all equally in down to the last detail. Like it's absurd the level of detail you have to be equal to everybody. So it's essentially like not worth the effort. But he had I think 6 at most, and up I think he had 9 or something over the course of his life. It's just not. Yeah, that whole situation is so foreign to me. I just I can't make heads or tails of it in terms of like judging it. So it's just like, well, that happened. No one got hurt. So, whatever.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I think that makes sense to say. Yeah, I don't know. But it is, I guess, one of the first things people think of as like a gotcha kind of thing, I guess. So it's good to just...
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely... Yeah, that's definitely a thing. But and I don't know if my response is going to satisfy everyone, but that's just how I feel about it. And I think a lot of Muslims, it's like that. It's not something that we really think about as like a thing,
Yeah, it does seem to, at least the broader problem does seem to sort of get at marriage as more than just... it's like it also includes different types of relationships of trying to, take over responsibilities for someone else when they die or something like that, kind of things like that, like these kind of strange, difficult situations that come up that we don't really have the same equivalents for these days. We don't think in those terms kind of thing in the same way, I don't think. So
yeah. I mean, the marriage as an institution has changed so dramatically since those times, and not only is that a 1.5 millennia ago, it's also a different culture, very like Arabian culture is just so different from like modern Western culture just in terms of that. So that, it's just, a lot of his marriages were clearly had some political aspect to them. Like it was marrying someone from a tribe that would kind of bring those people to be like kind of more accepting of Islam and stuff like that. And it's not to say that there wasn't like genuine love between him and that particular wife, but it's just like that we just do things very differently. So it's just not I don't think you can just like transplant yourself and put yourself in that position and just like not make adjustments for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So the next question is, Don, what do you think about Charles Bettelheim's Maoist era work? So Charles Bettelheim was an economist who started learning a lot about economic planning and sort of spun off into like a very far left direction. Originally, I think he was like a Trotskyist guy, and then he it's not like really he flipped really. It was more that he got convinced that Maoist China was moving in a certain positive direction on some things kind of thing, like he thought were serious problems with the Soviet model. So there's like a short period of time where he was kind of popular, writing a lot of works on like problems and planning and all that. And he's French, I guess. Did I say that? Anyways, but he wrote a series of books, I guess. It's like a big volume or whatever. It's Class Struggles in the USSR. That is, number one, criticism of Stalinism, that, the sort of mainline Stalinist view was that there was not really class struggles within the USSR because the proletariat had won. So there wasn't like an ongoing process except for like spies and all that kind of stuff trying to undermine them. So he was his whole kind of take on this was that if you look at the actual like on the ground stuff and how it was working, there was basically a fight over whether workers should control the factories or not, and like whether they should control the planning process or whether it should be like this new bureaucratic stratum. And his whole thing was that that was not like determined ahead of time, I guess, to some extent. Like that was, it rolled out over time. So his kind of, you know, he was very, very much more, you know, he came to the conclusion that eventually that the Soviet Union was basically state capitalist. And he had this idea that really, I mean, the way that I look at it from what I've read of his is that the Soviet Union almost became, I don't know the word, like maybe simulacrum, whatever, but of social democracy, basically. That it created this, you know, worldview around itself, that it was basically a dictatorship, but it had created this model of the world, which was basically almost like advanced German capitalism or whatever, but within this sort of Soviet dictatorship. So it wasn't actually revolutionary in a lot of ways. It was still built on this model of industrial progress and all this kind of stuff. It wasn't based on destroying the capitalist system. It was based on this sort of very highly ordered, highly regulated emulation of capitalism, down to the, you know, having the managers in the factories. Even though you're a socialist country, why would you have managers and all that kind of stuff? So he was really big on some of the very basic fundamental things that to him were like obvious about this kind of process, that had sort of been obscured by the debate, because to a lot of socialists that's like a non-problem. Like it's like, you know, you're either really a social democrat or you're a Stalinist / maybe Trotskyist or something like that. You're not actually trying to break out of that model at all. You're trying to make it more human in different ways or more democratic, whatever, but you're not actually trying to get out of that basic model of state planning and all that. So, yeah. So I don't know. I think it's very interesting. What ended up happening was I started reading the class struggles in the USSR. I got it out of the library, and I guess I moved suddenly or something like that. So I had to return all the library books, and I just never got back into it. You know, I had kind of like moved on, and but I hope to buy them one day. I think they're hard to get. I'm not sure. I don't know if they're out of print, a lot of these books, because you know, they were, you know, they're not like they're not like bestsellers, I guess. But he's the kind of guy that I think would be good for people that are interested in planning and stuff to at least take a look at, because there's some interesting stuff in that book. So
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
yeah. So what are Tom's favorite Skyrim mods?
So when you ask that question, I sort of think of a few different ways to answer it. There's some mods that I just wouldn't play the game without, and then there's some that are just like, they're really fun. So the ones I wouldn't play without are like there's one called like alternate start, and that lets you skip the whole intro stuff and choose like a different kind of scenario that you begin in. Like some of them are pointedly sort of towards a certain kind of character, like you can start as a soldier on one of the sides of the Civil War or something like that. But I kind of like the more generic ones, but just that it skips the whole intro sequence, because that gets a little bit tiresome to do over and over again. There's the basic like Sky UE mod, which changes the whole, you know, just the basic interface to make it a little more friendly to computers and whatnot. What I really like are like the weather stuff and the just like the landscape textures and stuff like that, because for me, like a big part of Skyrim is just wandering around in it and enjoying that aspect of it. The quests and going in the caves all the time gets a little boring after a while. So, you know, I haven't really played much Skyrim lately, but when I do play it, it's just kind of to run around, and a lot of times it's just to check out some new mod or new texture or something. It's just like to see, it's like a you know, like an update to the game or something. So yeah, that's about it. You know what? I guess my absolute favorite one is called Simply Bigger Trees. And what that does, it's very simple, as the name suggests. It makes all the trees like 2.5 times larger or something like that. And it has a massive impact on the way that the environments feel. Because all of a sudden these trees like have massive trunks, and so like when you go into a forest, like it's not just like these little sticks, it's these trees that like rise up into the sky, and it kind of can even cover the sky, you know, so it like affects the lighting and everything. So when you're in a forest, it actually feels like you're in a forest. It's not just like you're wandering by some little trees here and there. So I think that's a really good mod. It's a little bit intensive if you don't have a lot of you know, like if your graphics card is a little older or something like that, I wouldn't necessarily suggest it. But yeah, that's probably my favorite one, even though it doesn't really change a whole lot. And then as far as like gameplay stuff, I like I don't know, there's kind of a selection of combat mods that make the combat better. Then there's one called Legacy of Dragonborn, which is kind of neat in that it gives you a reason to wander around and like collect all these different like artifacts and little treasures and stuff. So I like that because it just gives me a reason to wander around. So
yeah. I mean, I played it for, I don't know, like a while, a few months ago, and I think I reached my limit on these games, like any game really, sort of like in the early to middle intermediate parts of the game kind of thing, you know, like once you hit like level 10 or something, I start to kind of go, okay, well, I got the idea. And then I kind of like, you know.
That's what a lot of people say, that like the game is most fun like from the very beginning up to about level 10 or 12 or something like that.
Okay.
And then up to level 30, it's kind of a grind. And then once you're past 30, it's you can kind of do whatever you want and it's not really challenging anymore. But because you're so powerful, that's fun in its own different kind of way. So
sure.
Yeah.
So the next question is about MOOCs, like the massively online open courses. What do you guys think of the Udemy courses, the website for downloading cheap classes, and coding classes and things like that? Is it a worthwhile service, and can you get a good understanding of those subjects through Udemy and all that?
Is this stuff like Skillshare?
It's like, you know, MIT OpenCourseWare and that kind of stuff. EDX. Have you heard of this stuff?
No.
So,
I mean, I'm familiar with the idea of like having a course online that you can like pay for, and it's like basically lecture videos and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's basically what this is. So it's just so I was looking into it a bit because, you know, there's different things that I thought like it'd be maybe okay to learn or something like that too. Like I could sit through a course on, you know, maybe something to do with finance or something that I'm interested in, or economics. I don't know. I can't. For me, it's like, you know, I guess the selling point is supposed to be that it's cheap compared to school most of the time, and you do it at your own pace or whatever. And you know, it's basically the equivalent of what you're going to get at most of the schools for these things, anyways. Really, because if you go to, especially now, like if you go to those schools, you're going to be watching online lectures. That's what's going to happen most of the time, right?
Yeah.
So and there is some interaction and stuff. So I don't know. It seems kind of interesting, but you know, there is a problem that they do kind of sell it as like the solution for a lot of people. They kind of say, well, you just sign up for these things if you need a job, kind of stuff. And that I don't think that's the case. But you know, I don't know. Maybe for a language or something. I've been trying to figure out something like this that I could do as like an ongoing commitment kind of thing, just having it in the background, doing it ever so often. But I feel like I wouldn't want to do any like, you know, assignments or anything. I would feel like it's like the computer can't tell me to do assignments. That's not, you know, like I'd be like, shut up, computer, or something. You know, like right. I don't want, and I don't want to like have it all tracked and stuff. Like someone emailing me being like, hey, did you do this or whatever? I don't know what, you know. I feel like if I'm going to do that, I would just apply for a PhD program or something, and I'm not going to do that. So it's like, what should I, you know, what's the, so it's one of those things where I go through a long cycle of being like, maybe I'll look into this. And then I look into it and I'm like, oh yeah, there was 10 reasons why I decided I wouldn't do that. But I do want to like figure out something to do with like language though, like a language app or something. And I don't know, have you ever used any of those? Did you use any of them for Turkish, or was it just the online? I mean, so just the in-class stuff?
No, it was just classroom stuff. But Tabs is actually doing the Turkish thing for Duolingo.
Yeah.
Or Duolingo, whatever it's called. And she's really good at languages. So she's going to know better Turkish than me if she keeps it up. It's been kind of fun because I've been sort of like helping her and like, you know, just practicing a little bit. I haven't spoken Turkish in years now, so it's kind of fun just to get that back up to snuff.
Does she like the app? Is it like, because that's what I was wondering about, like, because the thing is that like the price points for these things are really, really strange. Like if I took like an online university course, like actual university for French or something like that, you know, it might end up being like $1,000 or something like that. And I don't really want to pay that for, you know what I mean? Like I'm not really, like if there's something that's cheap I could do, I don't know.
You could probably just find someone who would be willing to teach you. A lot of people do like trades, like you teach them English and they teach you whatever language, you know.
Yeah.
Or people are just available for very cheap. That can be pretty cheap. I think like the courses with like universities and stuff, I imagine that those are like certified courses and it's something you can demonstrate to like an employer or something like that.
Yeah.
That, like, you know, I went through this course, I know the language to this level, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel like I'm beyond the need for credentials at this point. You know what I mean? I don't like. There's no value really to me for other. You know, maybe they will be in the future. I don't know. But like right now, I don't care about like that's what I run into a lot with all the different finance stuff. I like find it interesting. I want to learn more about it, but I don't need to like have a a master's in business or something. It's not gonna get me any value. So I don't know.
Yeah, you just tell them what you see is what you get. You know, you're confident in the product that you're offering.
Yeah. So the next question is, hey guys, longtime listener from Northern Ireland here. I was wondering if you guys had any thoughts on the Troubles and the general idea of a united Ireland, and which means would be acceptable to achieve it. Watch out though, this is a sensitive issue, so don't say anything stupid or else.
It's not something I know very much about, so I don't have a real educated opinion about it.
Yeah, I guess my great grandmother was Irish or something. I guess that counts. Yeah, I guess my whole thing on this is that I heard, like I lived in Quebec for a few years, and so I started to learn more about like progressive nationalist kind of stuff there. Before that, I didn't really have much of a positive opinion on that kind of stuff. And then while I was there, I learned more about it, and I was kind of like, oh, okay, I get it. Like, I don't really buy it, but I kind of get it, you know? And I think online there's like kind of there's like a cheerleader thing where it's the same thing happens with any kind of state where, the IRA becomes like a meme thing and all that, and people really push United Ireland memes and all that kind of stuff, right? But I heard a guy on, I think his name was Jason Walsh. He was on The War Nerd. And, this was years ago now, but it really stuck with me is that his whole thing was that, like, it really reflects my, view on a lot of this kind of left stuff in general now, where he was kind of like, at a certain point, people just don't care about this kind of stuff, It's like, about the IRA and all these kind of things, is that they just thought that they were like stupid or something. Not like, maybe not like stupid, but like they thought that like at a certain point you kind of wake up and go, wait a minute, like what are we going to, like, what's going on here? Like, what's the point of this constant back and forth and stuff? Can we just put it behind us to some extent or whatever, even if it's like not a positive resolution or something? Like, this whole like quest mentality of we have to achieve this historic goal and all that. At a certain point, you're kind of like, well, I don't know. Like, I can't blame someone that lives there that would be like, I don't want to just have violence all the time around me and stuff. I don't care about it enough that like I'd want to dig up the rifles, whatever, and stuff like that. Like, it's not like, it's very flippant, I think, to do that. I think that also, it's true a lot of the time. It used to be, at least with like Palestine and stuff too, I think, in a similar kind of way where people, went pretty far with it in terms of like, you see it online, I guess, a lot of the time too. Like, this is where, I see a lot of it is that people have like all the flags in their bio and all that kind of stuff, and I don't know. I think that's kind of, a lot of the time it's like a flippant way of dealing with the kind of thing. Cause I feel like, if you, lived in these places a lot of the time, you just be like, maybe in some generic sense, you're like, yeah, we should unite if we can and all that kind of stuff. But to make it like, you know what I mean? Like, at some level, it's just kind of like the people that are being held up as the heroes a lot of the time are just crooks too, kind of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the thing. A lot of times what the group represents to you is not how they actually behave or what they would actually accomplish if they were given the power that you want them to have. And the people that actually live in these places have a better sense of what that would be like than you do as like a cheerleader in a different country that has like this romantic idea about what's going on. So yeah, I don't know. I like you, I'm just sort of on the, I'm a lot more cautious than I used to be about, like, not that it even matters either way. Like, if I'm here cheerleading like an idiot, it doesn't really matter. But like,
yeah,
just I don't get super excited about things just because it's like, oh, that seems like they have a solid argument that I could support or whatever. It doesn't, I don't know anything about the group. I don't know what's really going on there. So like, why take like a strong position on something besides like, well, yeah, it seems like a good idea to be united or something like that. Like, that's about as far as I'm going to go until I know better,
Yeah.
It sort of reminds me of, there's this guy that I knew in Seattle. He was a very interesting guy. He was from Sierra Leone, and he was like pseudo homeless. Like, he didn't have a place to stay of his own, but he managed to kind of like bounce around all over the place. And he was like a musician. He would busk on the street, and he was very talented, to the point where he claimed that he like had done tours in the past with like Augustus Pablo and stuff like that. And that could be BS, but he was, a very good musician, and it kind of just made sense if you knew him. So I'm not really sure if that's true or not, but in any case, one time we were talking, and this was when I was much more into like Marxism and stuff like that. And that came up, and he was talking about like, oh, Marxism is, millions of people died in my country from a war with like between Marxists and other people. And I was like, yeah, okay. I didn't really have a good response to that after like, cheerleading for this ideology, and that and a few other experiences similar to that kind of made me realize like, I'm an idiot. I don't really know what I'm talking about. Like, just because I read something that makes sense to me and sounds good doesn't mean that the reality that other people have gone through is representative of that at all.
Yeah, I don't know. That is part of that's kind of a little been bugging me a bit lately too, is that whole, I can understand people being like, okay, well, you were rich in your home country and then you came here and you hate your home country, like you hate Cuba or something like that or whatever because you're exile or whatever and stuff like that. I kind of get that, but it's amazing how obvious it is that people, when they conflate everyone that they dislike together, instead of dealing with any sort of criticism or anything like that. Like, it's so transparently obvious that it doesn't. I don't think it's even helpful for the sort of social stuff. Now, I understand that like there is a tendency on the other end to be like, accept every single criticism that exists all the way down the line so that you don't actually have to make an argument. You just say, well, I have this idea of socialism and it seems good, so maybe we'll try it one day or something. Like, I can kind of get that. Like, you don't want to say that because it kind of makes you look childish, but I don't know. It's weird because I have like a deep respect for most people, like that I just, in terms of like their sensibility about their own lives or something, like that they're and stuff like that. But when it comes to like actual political opinions and like, a lot of things, I feel like people like so childish all the time. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird.
One thing I kind of think about in these terms is like how little currency like black nationalism has with black people in the United States, like as a whole, like for people to be actively like a separatist, we want our own state, that kind of like black nationalism, where that would be totally in line with like the most hardline, like, revolutionary Marxist, whatever kind of, sentiment. It just sort of like you should figure out why people don't care about it and not just have these ready to deploy like dismissals of just like, oh, well, false consciousness and, oh, well, they're like compradors, they're bought off, like,
yeah,
try to listen to people, like, I don't know. I think that's exactly. It's good for you to like hear people out, even if you get the feeling like, yeah, I don't really buy what this guy is selling, just, it can really inform you, especially when you're talking about something that isn't really your fight,
Yeah. So the next question is thoughts on the globalization of U.S. politics. So I thought I would include this one because I saw an article today in the Saturday New York Times that said it was titled "The Man Striving to Be the Canadian Obama," and it was like it's
Justin Trudeau. What the hell?
yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of that's a very, very clear example of, like trying to transpose American politics into other countries. You can see it all the time with other things like, Bolsonaro is Brazil's Trump and stuff. And
Yeah.
I think that one kind of makes a bit more sense, but you see it just repeated everywhere, that like everything comes down to this idea that, you're either an Obama or a Trump or something like that kind of thing. Yeah, and at least in this case, the reasoning was that I think it was like a self-described kind of thing of this guy. It wasn't like, I don't think that, and because he said he's a biracial community organizer who's a lawyer, and it's like, okay, but like, and also that the writers don't pick the headlines, I should note, because like, it could have been the editor read it and then pulled that from the article to make it the headline, but yeah, like that is pretty much like you don't. It's funny because it's a way of relating Canada, but you're doing it in a way that you don't actually have to learn about Canada, kind of thing, or something. Like I think that's the underlying part of it. It's like I can put other countries into my box, kind of thing of model that I have. So yeah.
It would be funny if the guy was claiming to be Canada's Obama and his reasoning was, well, I want to extrajudicially assassinate Canadian citizens. I want to, bail
Yeah.
out the banks.
Yeah. Well, I mean that is it is an interesting thing though, this globalization of U.S. politics. Like it's true that's it does happen to some extent where we were talking the other day about how you start to see these same issues pop up everywhere in terms of like same-sex marriage and abortion and all that kind of stuff. It's almost like it's like a certain type of media and political environment like creates these certain types of debates that spread across or like maybe like even like a level of technology or something. I don't know, like certain types of I'm not sure what the exact cause would be, but you do see like it's not just that Americans are trying to explain Canada or wherever in this kind of simplistic term. It's that in Canada, or wherever, like Canada is. I use the example because number one, I'm from here, but then number two, because it's so close to the United States, anyways. Otherwise, I think that like it's almost like a test case of a lot of this kind of stuff. Like like Trudeau's team spends probably a lot of their time comparing themselves to tracking the American news and stuff like that, right? Like they probably care more about American news headlines than Canadian news headlines. So it's like they want to, have a certain type of branding that is completely based on, Madison Avenue principles and all this kind of stuff. Like it's like this globalization of a certain type of elite class or something that is trying to portray itself as like a great, managerial class that can, fix all of our problems with technocracy and stuff like that. So, I mean, people from other countries fly to Canada to take lessons from the liberals, right? So, and stuff like that. Like, and in the Obama administration, you had Canadians moving to the States to become part of it and stuff. So it's a very, I don't know, it's like a whole ecosystem of liberalism. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to add beyond what we talked about. I think it was last week's episode. We sort of dove into this quite a bit and what you've just said, which I basically agree with. But I think like the internet is a big part of it.
Yeah.
Maybe not a causal thing, but it definitely seems to have this homogenizing effect on politics and stuff. And I think there's like this thing that happens where, when it was just cable news and that kind of thing, people had this sense of, okay, well, the news told me this and that's that, I guess, but I don't really know the ins and outs. And now it seems like people feel like they're experts on something because they read like an article, or even not, most people don't even read the articles. They just read the headlines. I mean, I just read the headlines, so I'm not, criticizing anyone for doing that. But I think what happens is people feel like they totally understand situations. And so that leads you to like take pretty strong opinions about things. I think that a lot of what determines U.S. politics isn't necessarily just American in nature. It's kind of like bigger than that. It's money that's much larger than any one country. So sure. I think that probably is a big factor in all that too.
Mm-hmm. So the next question is a good example of us being experts on everything, every situation. It is, which of the Balearic Islands is your favorite?
What is that? I don't even know.
So that is it's the islands just to the east of Spain, in the
Oh, okay.
Mediterranean. It's the Ibiza and all that. Say it that
Yeah,
way because we
sure.
love our
Castilians.
dance clubs there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I don't know. I guess that's how you say it. I don't know. Yeah, so I chose this one because in grade 10 Spanish I had I took Spanish just because it was like my friend was in it, so I just thought I would come hang out, and I was just terrible at it. Like I just didn't. It was just basically like a free time class for me. I just thought like I would just like hang out there and not pay attention, kind of thing, and just have fun.
Hmm.
And so I had this idea that like the teacher that we had was pretty young, and I thought it would be funny to like not do any of the assignments correctly, kind of thing. So we had like this assignment that we had to do like a booklet on different parts of Spain or something like that. We had to like choose, you know, whatever. Like people would say like I did it on Mexico or whatever, or like different Spanish speaking places. And I did mine on the Balearic Islands. And I thought it would be funny if I just made the booklet like so everyone else did like a normal kind of booklet, like Anyways, I did it extremely small. Like I did like I made it like basically like an inch high or something like that kind of thing. And then I wrote with like very small like pencil, and it just said like Balearic Islands, and it was just a small little booklet. And then I handed that in, just like the little thumb sized booklet, and I thought it was like the best idea I ever had. I was like, this is so funny. And anyways, so that's how I learned about them and so I guess I thought I was like punking her or something, that like I had like figure out a way how to do it in a stupid way and then still have to get, number one, I got a bad mark. Number two, I did learn about the Balearic Islands. So, like, it did not, my goofing off did not actually work out. But yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have a specific one in mind. I know that they were important for the Umayyads coming into Spain, so I'm sure there's one that I'm supposed to say. So let's just pretend that I said that one.
Okay. So you said Majorca and I said Minorca. I think that's what it is.
Okay.
Uh, would you live in an empire if given the choice? I think it would be a lot more worthwhile than popularly assumed due to the negative depictions in media, Elder Scrolls, Japan, or Star Wars.
Do we not live in an empire? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean we're in the Rage Against the Machine cinematic universe right now, and like you've got like Trump is up there being like just standing near piles of burgers, and like
Right.
there's like mist of disease everywhere, and troops like and cops beating up people and stuff. It's amazing. So I don't know.
Yeah.
This is like exactly what when I was listening to Vietnam in like 1995 or something. I was like, one day this will happen and I'll be happy or something. So yeah.
I
Um,
think I would definitely take some of those old school imperial situations over like a far right modern sort of situation, like the Nazis or
yeah.
something like that. That seems an easy choice. And the big problem is in comparing this is like, well, if you're living in like the 13th century, like you have to live with like 13th century standards of living, assuming that you're not like a rich person, right? So
Yeah.
that gets tricky. I don't. I think I would. I don't know. I'm fine with whatever as long as the government and the powers that be like largely leave me alone. To be honest.
Yeah. I think Canada has a queen, but I don't think technically it's an empire because the empire is being dissolved, right? Like the empire isn't there, but there's the queen is the queen of Canada and the queen of the United Kingdom in Northern Ireland, I guess. I'm not sure. And then I'm not sure how that all works, but I was saying this the other day that I do think it's strange that like at the end of the day, there is someone in Canada, like some constitutional law professor or whatever, that knows the chain of assumptions that gets you from, the police are okay to enforce these laws or whatever and stuff like that. back to throughout history in a chain of reasoning to some guy with like a club in England took over and said, I'm the king now or something, right? Like there's some, and it's got to be something like, and then God gave them the right to rule or something. And I know I had a constitutional law professor that I'm sure he knows every detail of that. Like I know he knows probably like, oh yes, God gave this man his divine whatever, and then because if you think about it, like our constitution in Canada, right? We like patriated it whatever in 1982. That was like when we got the ability to amend our own constitution, and before that, constitutional amendments were submitted to the United Kingdom for approval, right? So and our laws are all like, you know, they're based on like, it's like a collection of laws from like 1867, which were passed in London. Like there are London laws basically, right? So theoretically, all of our legitimacy in these laws rests on, to some extent, the legitimacy, historical legitimacy of the British law, right? And then that British law itself has like some murky beginning in terms of the English liberty or whatever, you know, like and stuff. So I don't know. I find that kind of fascinating that like, I don't know, at least in the United States, like it seems somewhat more rational at least, right? Like we came together and built this republic or whatever, you know, kind of thing. I don't know. So yeah.
Yeah, we cling to that Constitution for dear life, just exactly for that reason. I think.
Yeah. So
I do really like those like old timey ways of establishing like who's the sovereign. And the Ottomans used to basically have like when the Sultan died, all the brothers who had a right to rule would just race each other back to the capital, and basically whoever sits on the throne first gets to be Sultan. And that just I just appreciate that a lot more than like making us do the work. We have to like vote. We have to figure out like who's the right candidate. We have to like agitate for them to be on the right position on various things, and got to stand in line and get COVID, and just pick who you want, you reptile fucks. I don't, you know.
Yeah. So next one, should Maoist rebels in the Philippines and India give up or keep going at it? Yeah, I guess the thing for me is that these are not really like there is coordination between the groups, and like, you know, there's like a central leadership and stuff, I guess, to some extent, but it's much more like you are some sort of village that they're like, we're going to build a pipeline through your village, so you guys have to leave now or something, right? Like that's the kind of thing it is, right? Like it's like, and then the Maoists are like, if you want to like fight back, you can, you know, and well, and like even that is like the lower on the scale of things that they're going to do, like most of the time, right? Like if a farmer, like say, gets kicked off his land, like, you know, one of the top options would be like commit suicide or something, or head to the village and live on a pile of garbage or something. It's not like becoming a Maoist rebel is pretty low down the list of things people want to do. It's not like
yeah.
You know? And you know, Arundhati Roy has like a book about her meeting them and stuff, and she says that like when she met some rebels, like that, you know, they were taking her into the forest, whatever, to go around, whatever, get the grand tour or whatever. They didn't have shoes or rifles like the ones that she saw, like until, you know, like I guess like the, you know, like the recruits, the lower level recruits just don't even have anything really. They don't have like, so it's one of those things where, to me, that's not like number one, it's not like, it makes it so that it's not like a rational debate at that point. It's not like no one's sitting down and going like, what is Maoism? Oh, it seems good, I'm going to join it. Like there might be some students at like a top university or something that do that, but most of them, you know, most people are not doing that. They're just kind of going, oh, you know, that company kicked me off my land, and I think that the agreement is illegal, but the government doesn't care. Therefore, I'm going to fight back if I can and see if I can get back my land, or at least some payback or whatever. So
yeah, and that's like the best game going in town to fight back.
Yeah.
Is like whatever,
Yeah.
you know, Maoist or whatever
Yeah.
it happens to be.
And then other people in the village get paid to beat them up. Like it's not like, you know, like it's not like
Yeah.
it's not like it doesn't mean that just because they're a poor village that they're somehow a magnificent seven kind of thing. They're all united together and stuff. It's like, it's like divided like anywhere else. It's not, yeah. So I don't know.
More like the Hateful Eight.
Yeah.
I saw something on Twitter about like this village or area or something I think it was the Philippines, that is like proudly defiant of having never been conquered by anyone for like 1,500 years or something like that. Like they fought back all these different colonial powers and all this stuff, and they're still keeping up the fight. And I think if you got that going on, like, you should just keep that up, because that's, you clearly know what you're doing, or you're in a very good situation to fight back. So otherwise, I don't know. I'm not the person to ask. I'm just sitting here,
Yeah.
I don't have like the strategic options that I can weigh or whatever.
Yeah. It is also kind of funny to me because I see a lot of like memes now by people that are like trying to relate to international movements in some respects. And they'll be like promoting stories about like Indian communists, but it'll be like, like millions of people show up at a rally or whatever and that kind of thing, like in Kerala or whatever, like different states, they'll be like, oh, like these huge parties, whatever. And it's funny because I remember this, reading articles about it like 15 years ago or more. And, it would be like interviews with the actual party leaders and stuff being like, oh, we don't believe any of that kind of junk, whatever, like the old style kind of stuff. We just think that, it was basically like saying that we're like basically reformists who just believe in, sensible development, all this kind of stuff, and attracting investment and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it's not like it's bad. It's not like I have nothing against them, but those, like, a lot of those states are the same ones that are fighting against the Maoists and stuff, right? So, and imposing a lot of the different programs and stuff. So it's like, it's funny. It's one of those things again where people have like a sliver of knowledge about it and then use it to be like, oh, look, in India they had a general strike with like 60 million people showed up.
Yeah, the thing about India though is like if you have like a buy one get one free on like a donut or something, like you get 1 million people showing it. There's just too many people. Sure. You can't look at the numbers. You got to divide those by like 100.
Yeah, or and it's not just that too. Yeah, like they also do where the government will, like, say if the communists are in power in a state and there's like a protest that they support or something like that, they give people the day off to do it, right? Like they mobilize the people to do it. And
it's a good socialist government.
yeah. So it's like I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's like it's funny to see the simple takes on that stuff. I don't know, but anyways, yeah. I guess the basic thing is that it's like, I don't know. It is right to rebel. Just do whatever you feel like. I don't know. So these three are related. We've got maybe a question a day or so from someone who I think is a neo-Nazi.
Oh yeah.
So who says, what's Tom's ethnicity/race? That was just a question from someone in general. I'm not sure if they're the neo-Nazi, but they had there's two other questions that I thought were sort of like we can kind of group together, answer at once maybe. One of the comments was Muslim Tom is a race traitor. We get that a lot. And then there's another one that says, give me a good rational reason why I shouldn't be a white nationalist. So I was thinking that, you were saying the other day a little bit about Islam and anti-racism. So I thought maybe I might give you a chance to pop off on that.
Oh, sure. Well, let me go through those in order. So I'm Finnish American, so I guess that makes my race Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
And given how I feel about the Chinese government, I guess the race traitor thing is correct.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, okay. So a reason why not to be a white nationalist. I mean, I don't know what you want why is your life going to be better if everyone around you is the same skin color as you? That, like, what is the purpose of that? And that do you understand how much effort and resources need to go to make that happen? Like that's not a very, it seems like a pointless goal that is really expensive. Even like putting moral arguments aside about violence and stuff, because I know that kind of thing doesn't really register with people who are into this. So like putting that aside, it just seems like a huge waste of resources to accomplish some aesthetic goal. As far as the Islam anti-racism argument, I guess, what would I say to a white nationalist to kind of convince them? I don't know. I don't really have much there. I think you got to start with the like, what are you trying to accomplish here? Why is this good for you? We can get to the whole Tawheed thing later.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, part of it is, if you hate people now, you would hate people then. You know what I mean? Like if you actually got to the point where there was like a white nationalist empire or something, or like a social republic or whatever, like that united all of you, and then everyone else was kind of underneath your rule in different ways, but like all in a nice hierarchy and stuff. Like those people would just go to war or something. Like it's not like like if you look at like World War II and stuff, like fascist Italy and the Nazis probably would have went to war if they were the only two countries that existed or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, people just find reasons for this kind of stuff. I don't know what the theory is there about, like, because it seems to be something like, oh, if we, it seems to be to go in two directions pretty quickly. One is that like, oh, there's like an eternal war and you have to be like great in battle and all that kind of stuff. But then there's also like, the only way we can have peace if we're like all united as a nation or something. It's like, I don't know, it's war is peace again, right? It's this Orwell thing. I don't know, like it doesn't really make sense to me. So I feel like if you just want war, like that's not hard to find. You can just like do whatever.
It's true.
Not like I don't know. No one's gonna stop you. It's just not.
Yeah, join ISIS. There's my argument for Islam.
Yeah.
The other thing is like if you look at what happened with the Nazis, it's not like because you were considered white or Aryan or whatever that they like let you off and now the pressure's off and they just treat you nice and they love you. The pressure is on everybody underneath like the elite like ruling folk, like you had to prove you were a good German, and then like there was sort of like an examination process. They would like interrogate your personal life and stuff, and it never gets easier or better. Like you never pass that test. It's just like a constant pressure from the state because these aren't like real things that they care about. You might even argue that they were infiltrated by some other sort of sneaky race of people that corrupted the government, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. So the next one is do you guys have any thoughts on Rosa Luxemburg and the Spartacists? What did they do right? What did they do wrong? And what can we learn from them? So do you have any Rosa Luxemburg thoughts?
You probably know a lot more about this than I do. I just have a general sense that she seemed cool, I guess. But I know there's like arguments, about like in the left about like whether she was on the right side of things or whatever about various issues. But I don't know. She seems fine. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, that's my basic opinion is she seems fine too. It's I like to sort of joke about this for people because she's considered like like socialist martyr and stuff, and it's one of those things where I think people like her pretty quickly because almost everyone likes her, kind of thing. Like all the different organizations, because she was a martyr, they basically look positively on her, So maybe not her theories as much, but it's hard to get people to like riled up against her or whatever. So I like to do that sometimes. I like to say that like she was a bad leader who got killed immediately, kind of thing. Like she was supposed to lead a revolution, and she ran it into the ground basically. Like she had no chance at all. And I don't know, but it's not really fair to her. But it is kind of one of those things where like, she I don't know, she didn't do what she was supposed to do. I don't know. She didn't win, so.
Well, you can't win.
Yeah. I think that like she's kind of a strange figure, in terms of like I think her arguments against reformism are good. Like her argument with Bernstein and stuff like that. Like where she's talking about how basically if capitalism is going to break down, like it's only going to break down through like ruptures. and through like explosions, basically, not like some sort of whimper over time. It's going to be like a, you know, come to like a defining moment and stuff. I think that's pretty
that sort
obvious.
of seems right. Yeah.
And it's not going to be like, it's not going to be, you know, just every year they raise the tax by like 1% or something until you're socialist or whatever. I think that's true. I think that her sort of like thoughts about beyond that though kind of get into weird places. Like she seemed really careful about like not ruling anything out kind of thing. Like she kind of was, you know, she was more open to parliamentarianism than a lot of the other people on the more far left kind of thing, because she kind of saw it as a potential arena of struggle. Like I read a lot of books that like, you know, by like Panicook and stuff like that, where they're in Gorder, where they're just like tearing into that kind of stuff. Like they really think that was a negative tendency in her. Yeah, and I think she basically lost the debate on nationalism within the socialist movement, where I think Lenin basically won that straight up, where, you know, she was very much opposed to this idea that each nation would have its own state and build up its own little socialist organizations and all that kind of stuff. She was much more interested in, you know, like a Europe-wide, worldwide kind of radical movement towards, you know, worker rule or something like that, instead of trying to think in the old kind of terms. So I don't know. I like that kind of stuff. I like her stuff on the general strike. I think that did not really pan out too. Like general strikes are important, but this idea that it's like a secret weapon that always works or something like that didn't really work either. I don't know. So I think there's a lot there, but I don't know. I really don't like the tendency to think that the socialist movement is like 10 geniuses or something, you know? It's like a lot better to think of it as stuff that you can think up wherever you live. You don't need to like have read what Europeans say even, kind of thing. I don't know. So yeah.
Yeah, so this seems like a good place to end it for today. I think we answered a good collection of questions there.
Yeah. So there's still lots more to come in these questions, so and keep them coming. So, but you know, I thought just do a few of the fun ones for today and do some more interviews for you guys in the future too. So, thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, guys. If you want a second episode of You Can't Win every week, you can subscribe to the Patreon and you'll get that, as well as access to our Discord where you can chat with us in our community. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next week.
Thanks, guys.
My advice, don't stop rhyming. UPS not hiring, and this ain't the glory days. You can't get consignment. It's top rhyming. It's Boko Haram. It's non-violence and Afrikaans. That 3-round burst firing. It's Miriam Makeba opening for Paul Simon. Rafal Stadium. Pull up in the blue Renault. All the ministers had Mercedes or the new Peugeot. That's when you kinda know it's that kind of show. They the tight, hit your blunt, just let the run go. I'd rather come through your front door. Like so. Shorty can't eat no book, what I told Ta-Nehisi Coates. The room was thick with smoke. CD changer had a remote battery low. I laugh cause sadly you think it's a joke. Told my children Western education is forbidden. Might as well sell what's left of your Ritalin. No loose ends, took an acetylene torch to the filaments. Told my children Western education is forbidden. Might as well sell what's left of your Ritalin. No loose ends, took an acetylene torch to the filaments. Lines like Aikman in 95, whole team high. Plot twist, told Leon let me drive. Took my sweet time, the scenic route. The leaf cap for lime, hit police with crisp hand signals, then the peace sign. Wood burning, we don't slice up this type of pie. Gears turning, certain everything I learned in community college was a lie. Called them, the calls coming from inside. Fahrenheit was set in 99, but it wasn't fire this time. The touchscreen cold, glow, shine. Couldn't read a book if I tried. A failure of imagination, they say the treatment outpatient. Everything outdated the day it come out, hurtling down the ground racing. Hurtling down the ground
can take me, you can take me, but you'll never take my name. You can take me, you can take me, but you're just mining for my started light, but then scarred and wide. Oh, freedom, oh, freedom. The foursomes or the grave. Oh, freedom, oh, freedom. Who's watching anyway?